Welcome and good morning or good evening, depending on where you are at this time. McKenna here with a message on caring for our elderly. Thank you again for joining me. Go ahead and share this video as wide as you can. I believe this is good word. I believe this is conversations that we need to talk about, things that we need to be aware of, things that we can become better at. So share this message and also let me know where you're joining me from. Let's discuss caring for our elderly. And as we discuss this, also let me know what experiences you have had, what questions you have around this subject, because this is about helping one another as we walk this fine as well as difficult journeys of life. It's not easy, so this is a time to learn and grow together. So welcome, Mugeni Ameru. Mugeni, karibuni tigatwarie. Manto jaja. Habari yenu, those who are in Kenya, habari, thank you for joining me. Let's talk about these things. So, we all come from a family. What do we do when our loved ones start to age? What happens? Because we are all getting there. Every day that passes, you get older. We get older. And 1 year leads to another year older. So basically, our elderly at one time lived where we are right now. They took care of us when we were little for younger parents. And now, when they get older, the coin flips and it's time for us to care for them. So one of the things that happen is that age comes with complications. How do we meet those complications as our loved ones get older? For those that are in the mid ages, like me, or younger than me, and you have parents that are aging, how do you meet the challenge of change and becoming older? What happens when diagnoses come that are unpleasant and need our attention? What do we do with that? How do we handle that? So let's talk about these things today. And as I approach these subjects, I'm approaching them from a Christian perspective. I'm approaching them from a biblical perspective. What does the Bible say about caring for our loved ones? What happened in the Bible days when they got older? So let's read from 1 Kings. I want to read a text about aging, and then let's talk about it from there. Again, please let me know where you're joining from, and share this video as wide as you can as we discuss these subjects. So 1 Kings chapter 1, starting from verse 1 to verse 4 says, "Now King David was old, advanced in years, and they put covers on him, but he could not get warm. Therefore, his servants said to him, 'Let a young woman, a virgin, be sought for our Lord the King. Let her stand before the King, and let her care for him, and let her lie in your bosom, that our Lord the King may warm. So they sought for a lovely young woman throughout the territory of Israel and found Abishag, the Shumanite, and brought her to the king. The young woman was very lovely, and she cared for the king and served him. But the king did not know her. So we see a text from the Bible that talks about King David when he got old. Now, what happens? As our parents are getting older, let's say, for example, those of our parents that have been married for very many years. So you have two parents that are getting older. My parents were married for 62 years when my mother passed on and went to be with the Lord in December of 2023. I remember in 2021, my father became very sick. And at the time, I had a full-time position as a chaplain, and I needed to go home to Kenya for an extended period of time to figure out what was going on with my dad because he was critically sick. So to get an extended leave of absence from work, I needed 3 months of time off. You need a doctor's letter saying there's a situation with the parents. So the doctor wrote a letter to my employer, the doctor that they were seeing at the time, saying that my dad was critically ill so that my employer could verify there was a need to allow me to go to Kenya for 3 months. Now, this doctor had written, I'm writing about an elderly in the care of another elderly. I read that phrase and it put me to tears. I'm writing about an elderly in the care of another elderly. And how many of our parents are elderly in the care of another elderly? And let me tell you, it comes with challenges because when you have two elderly parents caring for each other, you need to know that they don't have the same ability they had when they were younger. So they are struggling. Elderly in the care of another elderly. They need help. In simple terms, they need help. When your mother is elderly and caring for your father, your mother is struggling. And that's the situation we see with David here. King David still had a wife. Bathsheba was still alive, the mother of Solomon. She was still alive, but she was elderly too. She could not take care of him. So they had to find a young woman. But look here, this is an elderly man who needed help. The Bible is very clear that this lady cared for him, served him, but he did not know her. So you need to keep that in mind. As I was reading that text, I know sometimes it's easy to go, oh, they brought this young woman to sleep with an old man. No, that was not the point. He did not know her. There was no sexual interaction with this woman. Her job was to care for King David, not to serve him as a mistress. So that's important. Again, I just read that text from First King chapter 1, verse 1 to 4. So if you didn't follow, you can go back there and look at it for yourself. As King David advanced in age, he needed extra care, and his wife was elderly, so she could not care for him. So, as we care for our loved ones, as our loved ones get older, let's keep in mind that they need us. And some of what we need to keep in mind is the days they cared for us. Our culture today has become such that we have become too busy. That's one. Or we move away from home. People like me. I left Kenya at a young age and relocated to United States. So, as my parents started to become elderly, I had a situation to deal with. Between living so far away and caring for my parents, it's not easy, but it is still required because remember, they took care of us. They taught us life. If you have little children that are 3 years old, they are asking you the same question over and over and over. And because of your love for them and grace on where they are, you answer that question lovingly. Let us never forget when our parents grow older. Recently, my dad was diagnosed with dementia. Actually, this happened last week. The diagnosis came last week. My father was diagnosed with dementia. It makes me think back to when my mom was caring for him. And I could hear her making statements. This is going on. This is going on. And when I was home, you hardly get to the bottom of the changes. Number one, because when people hear dementia, they think someone is totally gone. But these early signs of dementia where people are still very functional. They are forgetful, some things change, but they are still functional. So I didn't understand the extent until my father moved to live with me. And that's when I started to see things that I was not aware of. Anyway, I share this because there are certain things I want us to look at. This is a journey. Number one, we need to shun shame. Our cultures are very shaming. Conditions are not anybody's choice. And if you live long enough, you will end up with some of these conditions. Whether it's dementia or whether it's a heart disease, like my mom died of a heart disease. Her mind was sharp. Different conditions, whether it's cancer, it should not be a shame for somebody to have a medical condition. We need to be better at helping our loved ones. I was very grateful that my mom, at the time, she could call me and she would say, for example, my dad had a shop, Mekombone, Baraba Kuma Mekombone Ibuije. Papa had a shop at Mekombone. And he started struggling, and some people would find him struggling along the way, and they would bring him home. And my mom shared these things with me. So thank you for being there in time of needs for our loved ones and for our community people. As a community, the people you know, when you start to see strange things happening, don't laugh at them. Don't shame them. Remember, if you live long enough, it will be you sometime down the road. It would be your loved one sometime down the road. So these are not things to be shamed about. These are things to walk alongside one another as a community, loving our loved ones. We see what was happening in David's days. They didn't laugh at him. They didn't mock him or make fun of him. They said, oh, he's growing old. There is a need. How can we meet that need? So there's some points for you to take down. Number one, age comes with complications. And part of those complications is just old age, which interferes many times with memory, with our thinking. As people get older, the thinking becomes marred. Our thinking becomes marred. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Mawera. Thank you, Sal. Thank you, James. Please let me know where you are logging in from. Again, share this wide. These are important subjects. Let me know where you are watching from. Also, if you have any contributions, you can type on the comment. Any contributions, any comment, any questions. But as I was saying, age comes with complications. So let's prepare our minds for that. I've been preparing my mind from I became a chaplain barely at the age of 30. And I started to learn how old age can complicate things for people. So I started to prepare my age at my mind at the age of 30, that one day I'll become older and I'll need more help. I started talking to my children long time ago. When I get older, these are my wishes. When I get older, if this happens to me, this is what I would like you to know. This is what I would like you to do. Because when we are young, sometimes we can think that we'll never become old. But if you want to live a long life, be aware that you will one day become old. So prepare your mind for it. Old age often comes with complications. That's point number one. It often comes with complications. So prepare your mind. Also, look out for your loved ones. As they get older, they will have struggles. And oftentimes, our loved ones don't want to be a burden. Your parents will cover things that they are struggling with because they don't want to be a burden to you. So my mother covered so much from us. It's later on that I've come to discover that she suffered more than we ever realized. And she did not let us know. They cover things up because they don't want to be a burden. Think about yourself. I'm sure you don't like to be a burden, even you. How many of us have a problem asking for help? I know I do. I struggle asking for help. How many of us struggle admitting to other people that they are struggling or to their family members? Our own family members, sometimes they are struggling, they are suffering so much, but they fear to say so because we are programmed to not want to be a burden. So we avoid sharing our problems. I encourage you, share your problems with one another as a family. Sometimes it's not because somebody is going to take away your problems, but sometimes talking to somebody about it just lifts your spirit. Sometimes it might be that all somebody can do is give you a good idea that will help you. So don't be afraid to say you are suffering. And one thing I learned from my parents is be better at sharing you are struggling. You're not saying it so that people can do something. Sometimes let people be aware. Also, give people a choice because you might be suffering and somebody might be able to help you, but they don't know that you are suffering. So give people a choice. Share it. Let somebody who is not able to help you hear you out and pray with you. But in the process, somebody might be able to meet your need. Don't be ashamed to talk about when you are struggling. So as parents, encourage your parents to share with you what their needs are. So number one, know that age comes with complications. Number two, one of the complications of old age is often a disease. Because as people get older, our bodies don't function the same way. Even when we eat, our bodies may not take in nutrition the same way as a young person takes in nutrition. Naturally, our bodies become more feeble, more fragile as we get older. So, often, one of the complications of older age is disease. And when disease hits our body, let's say a heart condition. My mother was diagnosed with congestive heart failure in 2020. She suffered with it much longer than that. But I want to encourage you, especially if you are living in Kenya, please check on your medical status regularly and become an advocate for yourself. Because the sooner you can recognize that you have a problem, the easier it is to be managed when it's earlier than when it's too late. So become an advocate for yourself. Also become an advocate for your parents. So, what happens when a diagnosis hit home? Because oftentimes they will, especially with old age. Just know that it's normal to feel sad. You will have feelings of sadness. I did know that my dad's forgetfulness, confusion was not usual. I knew there was dementia going on, but there's always something with we love our loved ones, and sometimes we don't even like to accept the things that we can see. When that disease is actually named by a medical person, there's a sadness that sits in, like, oh my goodness, this is for real. Just know that those feelings are normal. It's okay to feel that way. It's also normal to be in denial. So when some diseases are diagnosed, it's normal to be in denial, especially if you are not feeling very sick. You might be given a diagnosis. Some diagnosis, heart condition. People have their mind. My mom had her mind until she took her last breath. So cancer is another condition. People have their mind. They are alert. They are aware of what is happening. Kidney failure. There are different diseases that people get diagnoses and people can be in denial because they don't feel it. They are not feeling pain, or maybe they have been used to feeling unwell and it has become a norm. So I have had patients when I was practicing as a chaplain. I am now not practicing as a chaplain. Currently, I am a professor, but I'm a chaplain for life. Once you become a chaplain, you are a chaplain for life. So I've met people that were given diagnosis by a doctor and they were told, for example, someone has cancer that has spread all over. It's in the brain. It's everywhere. And they were told, we don't foresee that you can live for another week in your condition. And I've talked with people as a spiritual care provider where they are in a shock and they are saying, this is impossible. I don't feel any pain. Yes, I had this sharp pain and they gave me medication. I'm not in pain. I don't see how I can be dying in a week or in 2 weeks. That's impossible because I don't feel it. But the reality is, the cancer is everywhere. It's in the brain, it's in the cells, it's everywhere. It's completely spread. And literally, that person dies in a week or in 2 weeks. So when doctors are giving some of these diagnoses, just know that they are human, that they feel the pain. They are not saying that somebody is going to die because they are vindictive. They don't care. They are mean. They are saying that because based on studies, this is what they have seen happen. And so when they tell you, know that doctors are in pain when they share this diagnosis. It's not what they want for anybody. So don't leave and say they are evil or they are horrible people because they said that. They don't want to say it. But when they say it, the hope is to help you prepare. Are there things that might help for you to take care of, for your parents, for your loved one to take care of before they die? And I have seen people who, after that initial shock, because it's always a shock to get those diagnoses, it's very shocking and it's very painful. But after that initial shock, there are people who will think, wait a minute, I have a piece of land. I need to pass this on to my children. I have this and this that I have hidden somewhere. I need to tell somebody that I have hidden this. I have this here. And I've seen people really make good use of the remaining time to take care of their business. And because nobody will live on this earth forever, just in case you know, I hope I'm not telling you the worst news. None of us will live on this earth forever, in case you didn't know that. So, being able to take care of business really helps people to have a peaceful death at the end. I saw my mother take her last breath. She was very peaceful. But guess what? By the time my mom took her last breath, she had nothing in her name. She had passed on everything. There was nothing left in her name. And because she did it her way, her wishes were done her way. She had nothing to hang on and struggle and fight as she was taking her last breath. It was very peaceful. I have seen that happen with many patients that I have worked with, where they have taken care of their business. And when death came, it was very peaceful. So when the diagnoses come, it's okay to feel shocked. It's okay to be shocked that your parents have been given that horrible diagnosis. That's normal. But beyond that, take time to sober up as quickly as possible. especially we as a generation that is caring for our loved ones. The sooner you can sober up, the better for your loved one. So when those diagnoses hit home, no, it's normal to feel even guilt. I wish I knew this sooner. I wish I should have done this. You feel guilty. You feel different things. Those are normal emotions. But sober up as quickly as you can so that you can provide the best care for your loved one. So then study the condition. We live in the era of information. Today, there is so much information out there. Study the condition. Google it. Go especially to credible sites like medical sites or big hospital sites. Go to the credible sites and look up if it's a diagnosis, if it's dementia, if it's a heart condition, if it's cancer. Go read on it as much as possible. Find out, don't, for example, people in Kenya, what I found out going through the journey with my mom is that people in Kenya don't get enough education from their medical people. Sometimes they are not even told what to expect with the disease. If anything, it's the denial of, oh, we'll treat you. You'll become better. Oh, we'll treat your loved one. They'll heal up. When a diagnosis is given, go study on it. Don't be in denial and refuse to know the truth, because you refusing to know the truth is not going to take away the circumstance. It will only blind you to caring for your loved one. So study on the condition. What is it to have a congestive heart failure? What is that? What is the progression? How does this disease behave as it progresses? What signs will I see with my loved one as they get sicker? This is not to stop you from praying for all of us faith people. It doesn't stop you from praying for a miracle. It doesn't stop you from praying for healing. We can pray for healing, but blinding ourselves is not going to take away the condition. So know everything that you can know about the disease progression, because that will help you care for your loved one. That will also help you to advocate for your loved one. If you don't know what to ask, you will not ask questions. Okay, my son, I have an amazing son that we've been through an extremely difficult medical journey. When I found out about his condition, I started to study on the condition. What is this condition? What happens? Because I studied so much for his condition, I was able to ask the right questions. I was able to advocate for him. This is also for your children, for you parents out there. Advocate for him. And because I studied so much and understood, when my son was 9 years old, I was told, take him home and let things take their course, because we have reached the end. There's nothing else we can do. Can I tell you a testimony? Today he is 22 years old and you've seen him do his life check. He still struggles, but he is living his life to fullness. So I share this with you. Everything has its appropriateness. Everything has its appropriateness. Understand the condition. When you understand the condition, you will know how to advocate. Keep in mind, just because your loved one would end up dying, my mom, she wanted to live longer. She wasn't too old. She wanted to live longer. And we prayed for her, for God to increase her life. I personally saw God increase her life because in 2022, God gave me a dream and showed me through a dream that my mom's time was at hand. And I'll share that dream someday with you. It was a very clear dream. And I had a conversation with God. I talked with God and I pleaded with God for more time because of various things. And literally, God spoke to my heart that He was going to extend time for my mom. And He did. I'll share that another day. But understand the disease. Also know that nobody will live forever and ever. So, in that case, prepare your loved ones. There will be appropriateness in making sure that your loved one knows Jesus. When my mother was diagnosed with congestive heart failure in 2020, I understand the condition. Like I shared, I've worked in healthcare for about 28 years. So, and I have been a chaplain particularly since 2005. So I got to work around a lot of medical conditions for very many years. So I know how these conditions behave. I know the symptoms that people experience. So when that happened, number one, I already knew my mom was diagnosed quite late. And as much as I was fighting for her to live as long as she could live, I also knew that she was not going to live forever unless God did a miracle. But I was not going to focus on a miracle at the expense of taking care of my mother. So I started preparing her. I was very intentional about talking about her faith in Jesus. I was intentional about talking about heaven and what that is like. Because you know what? Can I tell you? I prepare my heart every day for heaven. Because while some people will have a diagnosis that will give them a chance to prepare, there's many people that die in an instance. Could be a car accident. Could be a very quick illness that happens and you hear the person is gone. So none of us know how. It's important to keep our heart prepared at all times, for we don't know the day or the hour. But when our loved one has had a diagnosis, that especially if they are advanced in age, number one, we need to accept none of us will live on this earth forever. So let's talk about the heaven that we preach. We sing songs about heaven, we preach about heaven, but when our loved ones are diagnosed, we really don't want to admit that death will happen. And we don't want to talk about the heaven that we sing about all the time. We need to be better at preparing. And those who have faith in Jesus, we know that death is not the end. There's life after death. And the life that is after death is better than the life on earth. It's better than the life that we live here on earth. Living with Jesus forever and ever. There's nothing more glorious than that. So we will miss our loved ones. I still shed tears because I miss my mother. She was my best friend because I could talk with her about anything. I could open up to my mom about anything, and I knew that she would not judge me. I knew that she would stand for me no matter what. So I still cry. I still miss that. But I know that she's in heaven because We had very candid conversations. And so I know where she is, and I know that one day I'll see her. So let's be intentional about when that time comes, let's not hang on to them too tight, like we will live on this earth forever. Let's talk about what matters to God. The kingdom of God is the most important thing to our God. If we are believers, let's act like believers. Death is not the end. So let's not be so afraid of it that we lose sense. Let's face it with grace. So become realistic. That will help you care better for your loved ones. Shun the stigma. Shun shame. There is no shame. Don't laugh at your loved ones, and become their advocate. Another one, please learn to ask for help. If you are caring for your loved one and they are elderly, one of the mistakes that my mom made was that she refused to ask for help. And she pushed away help because she didn't want to be a bother. Even though she always told me, Makena, ukaritango gicionthe nyomba. She used to tell me that. Ukaritango gicionthe nyomba. Bera bagutetherie. Era ana baku bagutetherie. Ask your children to help you. Train them to help you. Don't do everything. Ask for help. She would always give me this advice, but she was not very good at practicing her own advice. So I want to give you my mom's advice. Ask for help. Let somebody else know what you are struggling with. So I am with my father, and I can tell you, if my family was not cooperative, it would be impossible. So my children help, my husband help, everybody is so helpful. So I don't try to do it all. My son that I just shared with you about, he does his laundry. He makes my dad's bed. He puts away his laundry. He helps him so much in so many ways. Same to my daughter. Same, we are all helping one another. And it just has made it much easier to help my dad out. So if you are caring for your loved one at home, find a team, whether it's your family, whether it's friends. And sometimes it's okay to take a break. Don't feel like taking a break is not being good for your parents. It's not easy. It's tiring. So take a break. It's okay to have somebody, even your friend. Hey, come and sit with my loved one for 4 hours. Let me just go take a walk and breathe some fresh air. Let me go for shopping. So stay home with my loved one so that I can go and do something else. So it's okay to take some time away so that you can take care of yourself. So when that diagnosis is made, know that it's the beginning of a journey. You have a lot to learn. You have a lot of adjustments to make. And when the diagnosis is made, know that it will get worse. So prepare yourself. Put some things in place. Prepare yourself so that as things get worse, you are not crumbling at the weight of them. So I want to thank you for joining me. Again, share this Let's do this every Tuesday at the same time. Tuesdays at the same time. Let's do this. Also, on Thursdays at the same time, I'll be talking about end of life care. I'll be talking about end of life care. So, this is specific to caring for our loved ones when there is not terminal diagnosis yet. So we will be digesting those subjects of caring for our loved ones. I'm a very big advocate on caring for your loved one at home. If you ask your parents, where do you want to be taken care of until you die? I'm challenging you. If you've never done that, go ask them that question. They'll tell you. And I guarantee you, they'll say, I want to stay in my home. So, as much as possible, let's figure a way to bring the wishes of our loved ones to pass. And I'm a big believer that where there is a will, there's a way. Where there is a will, there's a way. I tell you this because I've done many things that seemed impossible because of determination. And there might be things you want to do that you will not be able to do. Don't condemn yourself. There are situations that might be too difficult for us. That's okay. But don't give up before you start. Okay. So Thursday is going to be specific to dealing with terminal diagnosis. When your loved one has been diagnosed with a terminal disease, then what? Let's deal with that on Thursdays. My plan for Wednesdays, because I'm a theology professor and I love the Word of God. I love my Bible. It is so amazing and powerful. So on Wednesdays, I would like to inspire you with a midweek word. So if you're available, join me Wednesdays for a midweek word. Fridays, I share a testimony because the Bible says we overcome by the power of the blood of Christ and the power of our testimony. It's good to tell each other how God has worked in your life. Sometimes when you are struggling, you just have to look back and see how God did it before, and it can encourage you to face the new adversaries. So let's plan to dialogue about these things. Thank you for the comments. Please ask questions. You can inbox me if you're not comfortable typing your question here, and I'll anonymously address it within the video chats. Also, if you need prayer, let me know. I do take time to pray for all prayer requests that I receive. Otherwise, do have an amazing rest of your day, and God bless.